I'm recording too, Kelly, just in case there's need it.
All right. Welcome back to the Not Your Mama podcast. This is your host, Kelly Bryant, and I'm joined today by Heidi Campbell. Thank you so much for joining us, Heidi.
Thanks for having me. Kelly, hold on a second. I'm sorry.
You're fine.
My name is not Campbell anymore.
Oh, okay,
So,
sure. We'll do
I'm
it
sorry.
over.
Can we do that over again?
Yes,
And
100%.
my last name is not easy to say. Hold on. So let me rename myself over here. I'm sorry.
I know it's hyphenated, but I just figured because you have
It's
just Campbell,
so yeah.
Heidi Snyderburn.
Snyderburn. And
Perfect.
I go by, so for work, like my author name is just Heidi Snyderburn.
Okay.
But like in life, I go by Snyderburn Campbell. But
Okay.
I'm sorry. I was like, whoops, I should have clarified that.
No worries.
Sorry.
So do you want me to say Snyderburn or Snyderburn Campbell?
Just Snyderburn.
Okay. All right. You ready to go?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to the Not Your Mama podcast. This is your host, Kelly Bryant, and I'm joined today by Heidi Snyderburn. Hi, Heidi.
Hey, Kelly. How are you doing?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us today. Would you mind telling us your pronouns and what emoji you identify with most?
Oh, yes. So my pronouns are she, her. And the emoji that I most identify with is probably shrug.
That is easily the most common response that people give me. It is
Oh.
always the shrug face. And I had a whole conversation with someone the other day who didn't realize that the person is like that they have genders and they have races or skin color. And so she's like, I've been using the like non-specified version of like not male or female, just yellow emoji color. She's like, I had no idea. I don't know what to choose now.
Yes. Oh, that's so funny. Well, I'm dark, and so I have dark hair and dark skin, and so mine is a little bit more brown, but
yeah. That's I have finally just decided that I'm the blonde emoji because I'm like, I don't know, I'm basic white chick. Like I could be the blonde emoji. It's fine.
Oh, some of us aspire to just have that blonde hair, but just isn't in the cards.
I'm so anti the blonde hair. It's so funny. I went through that phase, like early aughts. I did the like highlighted blonde hair. I'm like, I am not here for that kind of maintenance. No way.
Yeah. Well, I've been in many times as someone who has black hair saying, is there any possible way I could ever go blonde? And the answer is no.
Yeah. I mean, you could do it like Khaleesi, like you could just go platinum blonde and then just go in every week for touch-ups.
Oh, it's possible. I'd probably end up looking like a skunk though. So
yes, most likely, yes. All right, Heidi. So tell us a little bit about, you're here as a guest expert, but you are also a parent. So just introduce us to Heidi. What do we need to know about you as a person?
yeah, thanks for the question. So today it's 2021, and the person that I am today is a parent. My children are 6 and 5. I am also a special needs mom. So my 5-year-old had a stroke during his birth, and he has a mild case of cerebral palsy. So that comes with a whole nother set of parenting challenges. I also am the transitioning spouse of a partner who is transitioning. So I'm a cisgender heterosexual woman who is married to a man who is now a transgender woman. So that is a key identifier, I'd say, in my life these days. I'm also an author, a podcaster, an entrepreneur. I think most importantly, a birth doula, so a woman servant who was called into my profession. And I love Peloton. So I'm a Peloton rider. My coach is Robin Arzon, who's pregnant right now. I love her. And
Robin's pregnant? I used to ride in studio when I lived in New York. So I'm like, I really love Peloton. Wow.
Yeah, she's pregnant. It's really exciting. And Peloton just launched some prenatal classes.
I saw that.
Yeah. So I don't know. So I mean, mostly I love poetry. I love hiking. I love running, which I don't do as much anymore because I don't know, 30 years of running did it in for me. And I used to be a pretty legit soccer player. I played soccer in Africa and throughout
Ooh,
college. And I don't know. So I kind of love all things athletic and positive and doula and parenting and
I
I
love it
don't
so
know.
much. So I'm like always pulled to go like down so many tangents and I'm like, we should talk about your running history. I'm like, no, we shouldn't. Heidi, you're assigned to go listen to the episode with Victoria Sekely, who's a deep physical therapist and a DPT, I was going to say, which nobody would know what that means, a physical therapist and a run coach. And she talks about running postpartum and running with injuries and things like that. So you now have homework. You're welcome.
I will take it. I will take it because like my heart aches. I miss running. So, I mean, I would run like a half marathon on Saturdays for fun. And then I had
Mm-hmm.
4 knee surgeries and then pregnancy did me in. And
Mm-hmm.
so I miss
Yeah.
it.
I just had a conversation with someone who was saying that her friend had double meniscus repair and she's not like she doesn't do anything except that she's postpartum. And like so postpartum can be really hard on your knees for sure.
Yeah.
Um but we're here today to talk about a little bit about the doula stuff and then a little bit about the birth story aspect of what you do, which I think is like I love birth stories. Someone posted a question recently on Instagram and was like, what is a thing that you used to hate that now you like really love? And I'm like, birth stories and people talking about their kids.
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
Growing up, like into my 20s, I was like, why are people talking about this? This is so weird. And now I'm like, it's so important for like the human race for like processing and healing trauma, and it's like this is how we pass down, it's like an oral tradition. This is how we pass down knowledge. So we're going to get to that, but first I want to ask you a little bit about why did you become a doula and what does that look like for you on a daily, weekly basis?
Yeah. Okay. So when I became a doula, I didn't actually know what a doula was. I'd never heard the word before. I was in corporate America. I had an MBA. I was just like climbing the ladder, doing my thing. And one of my girlfriends came to me. And I mean, we had been roommates like out of college and really good friends. And she was married and she was pregnant. And she came to me and she was like, so I have a secret that my husband doesn't know, and that's that I gave birth to a child in high school that I gave up for adoption. And so she's like, I've already been through labor and delivery. I know what I need. She was like, I love your massages. I love your touch. I love your positivity. Would you come and just be with me so that to protect basically that space as I give birth again in case some of that past trauma comes up. And I was like, oh, absolutely. So I attended her birth. It was life altering. It was one of those moments where, like, you've been awake for 30 hours, you've physically been taking care of someone, coaching them, massaging them, like just kind of going off the cusp too. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I walked out, and I remember it was like 6 o'clock in the morning, and the sun was shining, and it was like, the universe, I'm a Christian, so I would say God, but like the universe was speaking directly to me and was like, this is what you were born to do. So I started telling everybody how my day was. And my older sister, who's a little bit of a hippie and lives in Asheville, North Carolina, she was like, you were her doula. And I was like, what is a doula? What is that thing? And she sent me a book called The Doula Book. And I like devoured it, and then I went to training to become a doula. And that's
Amazing.
kind of how the journey started.
I like your story gave me goosebumps. I mean, I am very scientific. Like, I like facts, I like reason, I like an explanation for things. And sometimes, like, the world is just magic. Like, whatever higher power it is that you believe in, sometimes it's just like, I'm going to swear, holy fuck, man. Like, there is so much more to this than just cells and tissue and like what we can see. And I think that's so incredible. And that your what's funny is your experience of your friend's birth, which I hope she also had a wonderful experience, but your experience of her birth is how I want everyone to feel about birth. That like, sorry.
Fine.
Oh, they're okay. Um, we live in a 1,200 square foot house.
You're
There is no
fine.
hiding.
You're fine. You had
Um,
just said it's how I want everyone to feel
yes,
about birth.
yes, that there is this alchemical other thing that is happening. And when that space isn't protected, and I had a whole conversation and I want to say episode 13 about holding space and what holding space means. Um, when that space isn't held and doesn't have a container, we don't get to experience that. And so all we have is the tissue. All we have is like this objectively like very damaging physiological process that's happening. And if you don't have the like the magic, the hormonal part, the like emotional part, then it just sucks. Like the fun part doesn't happen.
Yeah. I think it was really wonderful to have that experience because I know not everyone gets to have an experience like I had where you get called into a profession where you
Mhm.
know you're just meant to be where you're at. So I had to make some tough decisions, right? Being a doula does not pay what high corporate America pays. Just
And the
does
hours are not great.
no. So for the first 12 years that I was a doula, I stayed in corporate America and I used my vacation days. So I had lots of vacation days, 4 to 5 weeks of vacation every year, and sick days and floating holidays and all that kind of stuff. It added up to a lot. So every time someone would go into labor, I would just be like, sorry, guys, I'm sick. Sorry, I'm taking a vacation day. And I built my doula business as a hobby almost
Yeah, it's for fun.
because just couldn't commit to it
That's amazing. 12 years, you said?
for 12 years. Yeah.
Lord, that is.
I have great stories where I would be up all night at a birth and I was just doing my thing. And then I would have my suit in the car and then I would have no sleep. And I would just like throw my suit on, like put my hair up, put some makeup on, and then walk into, sales mode and be like, I'm ready to go. No one knew what I was doing all night long.
I was
So,
gonna say, did people did not know that you were a doula?
a handful, but for the most part, no one knew. Mhm.
Wow. So I mentioned holding space. I would love to hear a little bit about what you see that is one component of a doula's job. I would love to hear what you see as a doula's job, or maybe if we orient it toward the listener and the position that they're in of being a pregnant or postpartum person, what do they get out of having a doula?
Thank you for this question. I wish that being a doula wasn't a job. I do. I wish that just having your sister or your grandmother or your aunt or your cousin or your partner was enough. But in our country, it's just, it has to be a job still because the hospital policies, especially if you're birthing at a hospital, I should say, less so if you're at a home birth or a birth center. But if you're birthing at a hospital, advocacy is needed. Like, it should just be as simple as, "Hey, I'm not interested in an IV port. I'd like an unmedicated birth. I'd want to be undisturbed." Whatever your birth wish is. And everyone says, "Okay, we'll intervene if there's an emergency," right? But there are all these, like, quality measures and protocols and policies, and really, it's all about their process at the hospital rather than the birthing person's experience. And so what happens in our country is we have very high cesarean section rates. We have medical trauma. We have moms that have negative feelings about their birth. So it's like they move from being in this really safe space through their pregnancy and at home. And by the time they are in labor or getting induced and they drive to the hospital, something changes. And so that's really where I see the importance of the role of a doula, is someone who advocates for you. Well, first teaches you and empowers you for what it is that you want for your body and helps you find your own voice. But then is there in the moment to, hold that sacred space for you when people aren't listening. So and there's a lot more to it, but that's fundamentally for me the biggest piece of it.
Right. And I think, I think a huge opportunity just within that, like empowering and helping you figure out what it is you want. Because I have so many people who come to like prenatal yoga and they say, like, well, I kind of would like a natural birth. I kind of would like an unmedicated birth. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but I kind of would like is not going to get you the outcome that you want. You like, you need to first of all understand your why. Like, why is that something that you want? Is it because you think that you're going to get a trophy, or is it because you've like looked into the evidence and you see, a compelling reason? And this is all not something that I can explore in a group yoga class when someone says this.
Yeah.
Um, but there really is like understanding why, and then mentally, emotionally preparing for what that's actually going to look like and what is likely to be offered, right? So, um, I had one conversation with a parent, Holly. I'm not sure where she's going to be on the agenda here with when the episodes come out, but she was saying, I just wanted them to give me a C-section and they made me push. And I was afraid. They told me that there was this bony outcropping in my pelvis that could prevent the baby from descending or could cause a shoulder dystocia, and that they might end up giving me a C-section anyway. And I just wanted the C-section, and instead they made me push for 2 hours and then gave me a C-section. So understanding, what are the benefits, because it can go, she's in New York, which is much more kind of like progressive with trying to improve their C-section number. I don't know if progressive is they're actively trying to improve their C-section numbers depending on the hospital. Um, and then there's people on the other end of the spectrum who were like, I didn't understand what was happening. No one explained things to me, and so they just snowballed and like ran away from me. And I didn't know what I didn't know until I was there in the moment.
Yeah. So I would say that would be the biggest piece of having a doula. Like I would say the second biggest piece of having a doula is the preparation up front. So it's January 6th. I am fully booked in my doula business until September 1st.
Ooh,
It is imperative that you hire, if you want a good doula who's experienced, who has a lot to offer, you need to hire your doula right away because they won't be available. But also, you need to hire your doula right away so that they go on a journey with you for your pregnancy. I like being on call for my clients 24/7 for their whole pregnancy. So we talk before and after all of their appointments. If they have some weird round ligament pain, we're talking. If they have some prolonged nausea, we're talking. If they're spotting in the middle of the night, we're talking. Like, I am there as a sounding board, a Google filter, an emotional support person for the whole pregnancy. But every step of the way, we're doing childbirth education and empowerment. And about week 36, I do really extensive childbirth education and birth planning. It's a minimum of 6 hours, minimum, after everything we've done for the whole pregnancy. And my intake form is everything about, do you have sexually transmitted diseases, infections, a history of sexual abuse, physical abuse? Have you had any past surgeries? We cover their body from head to toe, physically, emotionally, spiritually. And then we take all of that information and we put it next to where they're birthing and what the, let's say, hospital policies or protocols are. And then we do education, pros, cons. If they want my opinion, I will offer my opinion. But every client is very different in their needs and in what they want for their body and their birth outcome. So we kind of line those things up, and then they are then making a decision before they go into labor, because I do not believe you can have informed consent in labor. You're being flooded. Yeah, you're
Yeah.
being flooded with opioids,
Yep.
natural opioids. You're drugged. You cannot, there's no such thing as informed consent in labor. So we make these decisions beforehand. Yes, of course, we can change a decision in the moment, but we make the decisions beforehand when we are educated, we're alert, we're aware, we're maybe with our partner making a decision together.
Mhm.
We've read all the podcasts. We've listened to all the podcasts. We've read all of the books. Like, we've taken the courses. We've got a doula, and now we have really solid birth plans. Like, so that I would say that's the second most important piece of being a doula, is making sure that your client or my clients are prepared. They can see it, they can vision it.
Mhm.
My clients do not have the option of saying what they said to you, Kelly. Like, well, I think maybe, because the first thing I'll say to them is, well, you're going to have an epidural. If you don't have a big why and you're not fully committed and we're not mentally prepared for what's about to go down, which some people you laugh through birth, some people it's joyous. Some people who have a history of XYZ, it can be a dark place. We have to be fully prepared to unpeel the layers of yourself, to go deep inside yourself, to surrender to the birth process, to have an unmedicated birth. And if that's not
Absolutely.
appealing, then we plan for a medicated birth. And that doesn't have to be an epidural. It could be. It could also be nitrous oxide. It could also be IV pain medication. It could also be hypnobirthing. I mean, there's all different things that we can do aside from just showing up at birth one day and saying, I want to be medicated or unmedicated. It's not so
Right.
black and white.
And you mentioned something there that I wanted to call out, because the other thing that I hear is, I want to have a natural birth, but my partner either doesn't think I can or doesn't want that. And I think that partner dynamic, one, I mean, it is ultimately your body. Nobody can make a medical decision for you but you. And so I think, I'm curious if you ever find yourself stepping into the position of, like, marital counselor or alternative birth partner when there's a disagreement about how birth is going to go.
Yeah, I try to stay in my lane, but yes, there are every now and then there's a handful. I will say, when couples have taken the added step of hiring a doula, they're usually both on the same page, because it's a very expensive. I mean, my doula services are anywhere from 2,500 to over $3,000 per birth, depending on the package you get. I mean, big, it's a big investment and it's a big expense. And so most people are on the same page. If they are not, I absolutely have to go into a role of kind of dissecting one partner or the other. Like, one partner may want, not the pregnant partner, may want this baby to not be exposed to any medications. But
Mhm.
then the parent carrying is like, "Oh, I don't want to have anything to do with an unmedicated birth." And then we have it in the opposite. We have one parent who's carrying, who's like, I don't want any medical interventions. I can do this. And the other parent that's like, well, I see my role as a protector. And if I
Mhm.
see you in pain, it's going to be really hard for me to take a step back. I'm going to want to save you.
Mhm.
So, part of the childbirth education process for both parents, no matter where they are at, is to end in a place where not only are we on the same page, but we're on a page where we are repeating the affirmation that women are strong, women are wildly capable, women can do this, right? And that together as parents, we can do it together, but that we want to move away from a place of like whether you're having medicated or unmedicated, that doesn't matter. Childbirth is childbirth, right? So we want to move away from a place of a fear-based experience and move into a place where no matter what our plan is, we're both really excited, we're really prepared, we're very empowered, and we're ready to speak up when we need to speak up.
I think that you mentioned affirmations. I think being on the same page with with the birthing person's fears and where they are feeling ahead of time, like they're going to need the most support. I always tell the story. My best friend and I were pregnant. We had our babies 3 weeks apart, but they were due like 5 days apart or something like that. And we went through a Bradley method birth class. And anyone who doesn't know about Bradley method, it's also called husband coached birth. So it's really about training the partner to be a birth coach, which some disagreement about whether it's really the best role for the partner. But so my best friend's husband was also equally well versed in this. And she was at the early stages of my birth. And at one point, not far along, but like starting to feel some discomfort. My husband had gone to do something for me. She was nursing her week-old baby, and her husband is just like sitting across the living room from me, being like, "You can do this. You've got this." I'm like head down on the coffee table, being like, "Rrr," and he's like got all the affirmations ready. I'm like, this is amazing. I think everyone should like have their partner at least know what it is that a birthing person needs to hear. And it's not, are you sure? Do you do you want it now? Like, is it time yet? It's, you're amazing. You're capable. Like you're, and of course, beyond that, it's going to be highly individual.
Yeah. I'm so glad that you brought that up. And I'm going to do a shameless plug right here. So on my website, birthstory.com, I have a lot of free resources. There's a section called the workbook, and there's over 20 free guides on there. So if someone's curious about placenta encapsulation or partner tips or what to pack in their hospital bag, I took all of the things I have to tell all of my doula clients over and over again, and I wrote them in guides and put them on the website for free. So I've got about 10 free birth affirmations on there. And then I have some digital birth affirmations also that you could print out and hang all around your birth space. Those are $4. And so those are on the website too. So just shameless plug there. I'm very, very into having positive messages surrounding you. And so I did a big, huge one for $4 of 25 files. And then we've got 10 free ones. So I would love it if anyone's listening and they're preparing for their birth to go ahead and print out some of those birth affirmations. It is the best partner tip. When partners are like, I don't know what to say, I'm like, just read the birth affirmations over and over again. Say them every time she has a contraction, just say it over and over again.
hmm Yeah, that's one of the tips that came out of our birth class that we did is do more. Like as a partner, do offer more because the birthing person will be very clear if they don't want something. Like if you're like, "Do you want a sandwich?" The joke is during my birth, my husband was like, "Cal, I really need you to like eat this banana." And I like looked up at him and was like, "No, you don't." He was like, "Okay, I'm going to have a banana now."
And you're like, stop asking me questions.
Exactly. So it's like offer, right? You as the, and of course I think a lot of partners, male identifying partners in particular, are like a little bit less skilled at the soft skills, at the like bedside manner. And it's just like having another resource. I know I've heard many partners say like having our doula there was such a relief because like I even though I thought I knew what to do, like when it was game time, I, felt like I kind of choked and they took some of the pressure off and allowed me to like gather myself and then be able to be really present.
Yeah, that is so true. Well, that brings me, Kelly, probably to like the third part of being a doula, and that's the physical part. So, as a doula over 16 years, I have been trained in all these different methods, right? Like, I've taken Bradley, I've taken Lamaze, birthing from within, spinning babies. I'm a certified hypnobabies doula. I mean, there's lots of different sectors of childbirth and trainings and that kind of thing. My Rebozo training is probably one of my
Mm.
key trainings, and spinning babies. I would say those are the
I was
two
gonna say
biggest
spinning
ones.
babies, I need a whole episode about one of these days because I refer people to spinning babies all the time. So, can you give us some examples of like what are the hands-on things that happen in a birth that you do?
Yeah. So what I'm doing when I'm laboring with a mom is non-medical, right? So somebody else is, worried about heart rates and blood pressures and all that kind of things. I am listening, feeling, touching, like I'm actually like palpating the uterus to feel how strong the contractions are. I don't need a monitor to tell me that. If I'm with you from the onset of your labor through delivery, I can feel the power growing in your uterus just by touching your uterus. I am about 99% accurate in telling my clients what their cervical dilation is without doing a cervical check. So when we get to triage and I say, I think you're about 6 to 7, we haven't gone through transition. That's obvious, but you're having some bloody show. You've gone through the really longer part. I'm 99% of the time spot on with cervical dilation. And that's because I'm touching their body. I'm mapping their baby. So not only am I watching them, like, are they leaning to the left? Are they leaning to the right? Are they leaning forward? Where are they telling me, if they choose to share, where they're feeling the sensations? Or maybe I ask, are they in your back and your side and your thighs? That helps tell me baby's position. I feel the belly to feel baby's position. And then I am physically moving my clients' bodies, partnered with their innate wisdom, right? Their body's innate wisdom is going to tell them primarily where to go, but I can certainly open their pelvis by pushing on their sacrum, doing a double hip squeeze, shaking their hips and their belly with my rebozo. At different points of labor, we have to open the upper pelvis versus the lower pelvis. So, when to shake and move versus when to do deep squats. So, all of this there's like a running algorithm in my head of how long we've been in labor, how close the contractions are, how powerful they are, how long they last. And then that's helping guide me with my hands. Am I pushing high? Am I pushing low? Am I pushing down? Am I pushing up? Are we moving? How often are we moving positions? How long are we staying upright? When are we resting? When are we getting on the toilet? All these different things. So the physical part of your doula is helping you find physical comfort in your labor, helping your baby get into an ideal birthing position, helping your baby rotate and to come down, helping to minimize tearing, reduce the length of labor, reduce the length of your pushing. All of these things equate to lower C-section rates and, no medical trauma. I do my statistics every year, Kelly. I think that's like the MBA in me.
I was
And
gonna say nerd.
I know I have to I chart everything at the end of every birth and then I do my statistics. But last year in 2020, I supported 32 families and my C-section rate was 7%. So I had two clients that ended in cesarean section. Both of those clients were induced when their bodies weren't ready. Their labors were more than 40 hours on Pitocin, and the babies just didn't tolerate it over
Mhm,
time. All of my other clients had vaginal births.
mhm.
If we didn't intervene with the onset of labor, my C-section rate is 0% year after year after year. And so I think that's another part of it too, is physically helping you prepare your body for your birthing time.
Mhm.
And that requires a lot of movement, a lot of squats, a lot of physical activity, a lot of walking, a lot of sex if you're female partnered with a male partner, because semen has prostaglandins in it that can soften the cervix. If you're same sex partnered or you are single, there's a lot of other things we do with evening primrose oil, nettle tea, red raspberry leaf tea, being upright a little bit more often. So I think that's all part of the coaching of having a doula is you have a physical, emotional, and a spiritual support person to guide you through a journey so that when you're sitting in Kelly Bryant's yoga class, you're like, "Hey, I have a doula and I'm having an unmedicated birth." Or I have a doula and I'm having a medicated birth and I'm really educated and empowered on every decision that I've made for my body.
Exactly. And I want to talk about the money because you mentioned like 2,500 to over $3,000 depending on the package, and I'm looking at that and I'm going, that is a freaking steal. Like that is such an incredible value for the outcome that, I mean, not to mention like your actual time, but frankly, your clients don't know how much of your time they're going to get before they actually go into birth, but go into labor. But the fact that you can reduce the likelihood of a C-section is enormous as far as actual dollar and cents value to the birthing person. How much more assistance are you going to need postpartum if you have had an abdominal surgery? How much more potentially physical therapy are you going to need postpartum if you're having a surgery? When I birthed, I actually was uninsured. If I had had a C-section, that would have been bankrupting. An emergency C-section with a transfer to a hospital, that, I mean, there's very real financial cost to not being prepared for birth. And I'm actually preparing to have someone come on to talk about money for female identifying parents. But I think people really get wrapped up in this idea of like, well, it's $2,000, $3,000, $7,000 I don't have to spend. And I'm like, you're spending the money either way.
Yeah. I will say I have never once had a client that was like, "Ooh, that was a lot of money," at the end of the thing. And in fact, most of my clients give me very generous tips at the end of it, which I don't know if that's a common practice. But I just moved into a new home. One of my clients gifted me with 2 hours of professional organizing. So I
Amazing.
get tipped in all different types of ways afterwards because they think they haven't paid enough. When I'm interviewing, I break it down for them. You're hiring your doula at the onset. We've already established hire your doula at the onset of your pregnancy. It's about $250 a month. 30% of the time your insurance is going to cover it. So everyone listening, if you are considering hiring a doula, your doula should have a diagnostic code, a procedure code, an MPI number, everything that you need to file for insurance, including like a super bill with their invoicing. So it's $250 a month also to have someone on call for you 24/7. Again, because I do my end of year statistics and I break it down. If I just put in labor support, childbirth education, like those hours, and then the postpartum hours, I made $72 an hour.
It's not,
I
not,
don't count any of the time for 10 months that we're texting and talking. I mean, so really, it's, you know, when you look at what your doula is providing for you, I mean, at the end of it, it's probably closer to you're paying $30 to $40 an hour for the time that you have for your doula. It's not a lot.
right.
So,
It's not a lot, and you don't, it's like an insurance policy. You don't
mhm.
know what you potentially might need down the road. And I want to talk briefly about birth stories. Before we do, I would love if you can
One
just touch.
second, Kelly, you just
Give,
broke up. You just broke up.
let me try again.
Okay.
Okay. I want to talk a little bit about birth stories, but before we do, I would love if you could just touch on postpartum doulas and what kind of services people might choose to have postpartum.
Yes, so absolutely. So this is a great distinction. There is a difference in certifications between a birth doula and a postpartum doula. Now, your birth doula, if they are only certified as a birth doula, they do a postpartum visit or postpartum, maybe 2 postpartum visits, but it's more checking in on postpartum anxiety, postpartum depression, breastfeeding, going back to work, the transitions with other siblings, that kind of thing. A postpartum doula does all of those things. They also may do things like teaching you to be a parent, helping you to put together your crib, what products to buy, making you meals, doing your dishes, helping you to learn a perfect swaddle, how to make a bottle, how to clean your bottles, how to breast pump or how to breast pump, listen to me, how to pump your breasts, how to clean those parts, how to troubleshoot. So a postpartum doula it's like a little bit of a nanny, a little bit of a night nurse, a little bit of a parent educator, all wrapped up into one. In my area, postpartum doulas are anywhere from $25 to $45 per hour. And most of them will do night shifts to help the parents get some sleep in the newborn period.
And I have seen people, at least in my area, who offer um, like gift certificates or ways for people to register for a postpartum doula before they have the baby. So it is a really, if this is someone who you are close to, yes.
You just broke up again.
Did I
So just
really?
say, yeah. So say
No.
like to register for,
Oh, yes. So they offer the ability to register for postpartum services. So if you know this person really well and you know that this is a kind of support that they might appreciate, it's such a thoughtful gift. And especially under current circumstances, we don't know how much longer COVID's going to be a thing, but they might feel more comfortable with one medical adjacent provider coming into their home rather than getting takeout, hiring a nanny, having friends and family stop by, like all of those things that people might not be as comfortable with. Of course, you want to check with them and say, are you okay with the doula coming to your house? But it can be a really, really helpful way to provide for your community when you know that they don't necessarily have access to their full tribe like they otherwise would.
yeah, that's a really good point. So also, again, with postpartum doulas, check with your insurance. You can always use your HSA or your FSA. Max, I'm on an interview. Okay, you got to go get help from Nana Jane. Okay. Oh, it's today's the 6th.
I did 6.
Okay.
I already
I'm so
did
sorry,
that.
Kelly.
I took a picture. I just don't know how to do it.
Okay, I can't help you because I'm being interviewed right now. I'll be out in 10 minutes and I'll help you. Okay, Max. Yeah, I'll be out in 10 minutes and I'll help you. Okay, you can just wait on my bed for me. Okay.
I don't
Okay.
know if you could see it, but the like one of the towels on the back of your door started moving first, and I was like, there is a little person coming.
I was like, I can see like behind me. I started seeing ahead. I was like, oh no. I think I was saying about the insurance. So let me just say that
Mhm.
again. So it's really important to note, even with postpartum doulas too, they have the same procedure codes and sorry, they have procedure codes and diagnostic codes that will help you with insurance and your super bill. You can also use an HSA or an FSA. So if you are becoming a parent, like max out your flexible spending account and your health savings account. You are going to use every dime of it that you put in it.
Yes, 100%. So, as we kind of wrap up, and you talked a little bit about this kind of transition period that even a birth doula will often stay through postpartum for a visit or two. And birth itself is a really intense change, right? So, the term that's used in the literature is matrescence. And telling birth stories is a huge part of that process of kind of understanding this new identity. And I would love to hear a little bit from you about why you've had a book and a podcast and all of these things about birth stories, and why is this so magical?
Yeah. Well, so my company is Birth Story Media. And under that umbrella, I have the Birth Story book. It's a 42-week guide to pregnancy. There are 25 birth affirmations. It's a 42-week pregnancy journal. And there are 42 birth stories. So it's meant to be read week by week. You get a postcard from your baby that says, Dear, in this case, I know we talk about parents, but in the book, it says, Dear Mom, and it says, I'm your baby. I want to tell you all about what's going on with me this week. So you know how your baby is developing that week. Then you have a birth story to read, an affirmation, and a journaling prompt. So it's a week by week kind of book. And the reason that I wrote the book and I do the podcast this way with the birth stories is it's education through storytelling. So anyone who listens to the Birth Story podcast knows I interrupt a lot. There are many wonderful birth story podcasts out there. Mine is very different because I'm a childbirth educator and I'm a doula and I'm an interrupter. So as moms are telling their birth story and they say something like, and I had my bloody show. Well, a first time mom listening is like, what is bloody show? Right? If you've are just found out you're pregnant, you found your way to the podcast. So I will pause and we'll talk about what is bloody show? What does that mean? What is your mucus plug? What does that mean if it starts to come out? All of these small and big components of pregnancy and birth, and as women are sharing their stories, and I have a lot of the partners on too. So as the partners are telling their perspectives, I'm offering education woven into that storytelling so that it's a different way to learn. And that's how my pregnancy guidebook is too. You read the story, there are pop outs. So if there's a term that I don't think everyone would know when they're reading that story, from the very basic epidural, there will be a pop out, or there is a pop out in the book that explains the epidural procedure. So if that's something that you're interested in, you'll have from a doula's perspective. And my medical director is the director of obstetrics at UNC Chapel Hill, Dr. John Thorpe. So you'll have like this balance of an OB and a doula's perspective on what that epidural procedure is like, what it's for, the pros and cons. So then you can make a decision on whether or not that feels right for your body. So for me, this platform of telling birth stories in a positive way, even if I'm interviewing someone who had a very traumatic experience, I always tell them our lens today is not to, I'm not your therapist. The lens today is we're talking to a new mom. What can we teach her? How could we prevent her from having your story? And I think it works really well. So the podcast, I hope everyone will listen to. It's Birth Story Podcast, in kids and parenting and or sorry, in the kids and family in the parenting sectors of Apple Podcasts. It has a peak position of 16. So always in the top 100. It's growing, and I really think that education through storytelling is a very powerful platform for parents.
It is. And I think to bring this all full circle to what you were saying right at the beginning, but why do we have doulas? It's because for a few generations here, at least, in the United States, from like late 1800s to late 1900s, early 2000s, we have this period of time where we've lost the oral tradition. We've lost kind of our roots in birth being directed by the birthing person and having an empowered birthing person. And so often our grandmothers, our mothers, our aunts, these people don't necessarily have a a lot of awareness around birth, right? They haven't heard a lot of other people's births, and they haven't often healed their own birth story. That, I hear so many people telling me, like, my mom won't shut up about telling me how horrible her birth was. Like that birth stories have such a power to be really inspiring and motivating and empowering, but we have many generations of our lineage that is potentially passing down kind of intergenerational trauma and difficult stories. And so I think the more of us that are willing to share honest but positive stories, the more we can kind of bring back that belief in the power of birthing people in this in this time, in this age.
Yep. 100% agree. So it goes back to what we talked about at the beginning, like a doula shouldn't be a job, right?
Yeah.
Historically, doula meant woman servant, and every sister, cousin, aunt, grandma was trained because they grew up attending births, learning about birth and the birth process their whole lives. And so this was part of our community. It was part of our role also as women supporting other women in the birthing process. We're mammals. If you look at elephants, the female elephants will get in a circle around the birthing person and connect their trunks to protect. And I'm sure they're speaking a language and doing different vibrational sounds and movements that we, will never understand, not being in their species. But it is something that I think as mammals that it's inside of us. Like I could feel that when I was birthing. I could feel that when I became a doula. It's something that's in us. And it's like a light that's been burned out. And so, trying to relight that flame is really important. And to also touch on what you said about retelling stories, I do EMDR therapy. And one of the big things with EMDR or any therapy is it's when we tell our trauma over and over again, it helps to lessen that trauma. So just talking about our trauma helps us to heal from the trauma. And I think that that's why we have like a long history of women telling negative birth stories because it's helpful. It's helpful to them to tell their story over and over again, even if it was negative, so that they can heal from it. The problem is how do we change that language so that they can heal at the same time someone else can learn? And that's my difficult job as the host of the podcast is to hold space and to hear these stories that are sometimes not sunshine and roses so that they can help process and heal, but ask the right questions so that the women coming behind them can learn from that experience and have a better birth experience.
Yeah, absolutely. So I would love if you mentioned your podcast, which is amazing. I'm not sure if the episode I'm on is out yet, but it's coming out or was
It has
recently.
not come.
Okay, so that's
Yes,
coming out
it's
soon.
coming out this month. So I had Kelly Bryant on the Birth Story podcast, and
So
I'm really excited for your episode.
obviously go check out the Birth Story podcast because it saves me ever having to tell my birth story on this show. We'll just send everybody there. But additionally, if people are in the Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill area, how can they work with you?
I live in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Oh, do you?
So,
Oh,
yeah.
I thought you were in the Triangle.
Different. So,
If people are in Charlotte, how can they work with you?
well, the first thing I'll say is we're in COVID, and so I've gotten really good at virtual doula services. So I offer virtual birth planning. So I can't be hands-on at your birth, but if you live anywhere in the country, so I have some virtual clients right now in Hawaii, California, Minnesota, New York,
That's awesome.
all over. So you can go to mydoulaheidi.com if you are interested in talking to me about doula stuff. So MYDOULA and then Heidi's HEIDI. So mydoulaheidi.com for anything doula related. And then of course, Kelly, I would love any of your listeners to purchase the birth story book and have that be a gift or to go with them on their journey. Anyone who uses code birth story podcast will get $5 off free shipping and a free gift from me in their package, as well as a signed copy of the book. So at birthstory.com is where you'll find those birth affirmations and all of those free guides and the book. And so just a reminder to listeners to use code birth story podcast so that they can get that free gift and the free shipping and $5 off.
Amazing. You are such a wealth of knowledge, and we are lucky to have a woman servant like you in our community. So thank you so much for being on the podcast, Heidi. Thank you for doing everything that you do to produce so much amazing content for people. And I can't wait for everyone to listen to this.
Sorry, can you hear that?
No.
Alexa, stop.
My alarm started going off for my kids' class. I'm so sorry.
It's fine. It's clearly
Just
time
cut
for you
all
to
that
go.
mic in, and then I'll just say thank you so
No,
much.
nothing. There was
So-
no audio issue.
Oh, there wasn't.
No,
Okay.
I couldn't
So
hear
you-
anything. So
I won't leave you hanging. So I'll just say, Kelly, thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And I can't wait to connect with you again.